fly around the moon.
Time to splashdown, currently 41 minutes, 51 seconds and counting. As you can see with this visualization of the Orion spacecraft, which gives a good graphical representation of what is happening with the vehicle from a third-person perspective. You can see the vehicle is, as has been said in the mission, tail to sun, largely pointing the European service module angled towards the sun, a little bit away from it now, as separation is about to occur with the European service module releasing away from the crew module. That's set to happen in less than 10 minutes at about 6:33 p.m. Central, 7:33 p.m. Eastern, 23:33 UTC for those joining around the world. Following separation of the crew and service modules.
Integrity Houston, we have confirmed a good CMRCS hot fire. And although we are not seeing GPS acquired yet, you can skip the troubleshooting step in 157 for now.
Integrity copies.
That acronym, the CMRCS, is a reference to the crew module. The CMRCS are the reaction control system thrusters. The Orion spacecraft across both the crew and service modules has a total of 33 engines. That includes the main engine,
and Houston, I think we just needed your call on GPS. We at least have GPS 1 looking good on board.
We are confirming.
It sounds like acquisition of GPS signal is looking good on the Orion spacecraft. You're taking a live view from one of those solar array wings, or SAWs, looking back at both the European service module and the crew module. And this a nice view because you can actually see some of the crew windows there as they're peering.
Integrity, confirm we do see good GPS.
We do too, especially GPS 1 is accepting in nav channels 1 and 3.
The Orion crew module has four primary windows, out of which the astronauts have been getting some amazing views, both of the planet Earth as well as the moon during their flyby back on flight day 6. The two center windows are the windows 2 and 3, the main windows that are facing from the position of crew members Reed Wiseman and Victor Glover. The two naval test pilots.
Your vehicle is config for CM-SM set and go CM raise.
Houston, we see copy, go CS.
And you just heard a good call that the teams are in position for the separation of the crew and service modules. That communication being relayed from Capcom Jackie Mahaffey down in the White Flight control room there at Mission Control Center in Houston, Texas. Radioing up to, and the words being received by Artemis II Commander, NASA astronaut, and Naval Test Pilot Reed Wiseman. We're now just about 3 minutes away, a little bit less than the separation of the crew and service modules. Not going to make promises on what we'll see from the visuals here, but if there's a good preservation of signal between the ground and the European service module through the point of separation, this could be a really special shot, seeing the two separate.
Integrity Houston, for the two enabled prop cautions, what happened is while the thrusters were firing, multiple pressure sensors on each of the strings diverged a bit from each other. Those limits look to be set pretty tight. We think it could happen again when the thrusters fire in the future, so we are going to suppress those messages.
We concur with suppress, not inhibit. Thank you.
Time now less than 2 minutes away from the planned separation of the crew and service modules. About 35.5 minutes to splashdown of the crew module in the Pacific Ocean. On the off chance that our timing here may be out of sync, we don't believe so, but just to be overly cautious for the final about minute now to the planned separation, we're going to go ahead and pause in our commentary just to make sure we don't step on this crucial moment, and we'll watch along with you.
Houston, good step on board.
Houston copies and concurs.
Multiple views of
Integrity,
separation.
no action for the 4 CDH cautions. Those are SM related, not applicable.
Integrity.
Coming up next will be a roughly 19-second burn of the reaction control system thrusters on the Orion spacecraft, putting it at the correct angle in preparation for atmospheric interface. Time to splash down, 32 minutes, 35 seconds.
Integrity, you have a good GPS 2.
Integrity copies, good GPS 2. Houston, we got a great view of the European service module out the window with the sun hitting the side and the solar rays and the NASA worm right there. It's a beautiful looking machine.
Roger.
Fewer than 31 minutes remaining before the planned splashdown of Orion, and some good words from the spacecraft's commander, Reed Wiseman, admiring the part of Orion that has supported their life support systems, given Orion power and propulsion for the journey that is now nearing its end, about 30 and a half minutes before splashdown now. Local time 6:36 p.m. Eastern, and less than, or 6:36 p.m. Central, 7:36 p.m. Eastern. We're less than a minute away thereabouts to the planned orbit or crew module raise burn, which will last about 19 seconds in duration. And that burn has now been completed.
Integrity, good. CM raise burn. Your flight path angle is within limits.
Integrity copies. Looks good on board, Jackie.
Integrity Houston, a heads up about comm coverage. When you perform the 180 roll, for the first minute or so in that attitude, we expect about a minute LOS.
We copy.
According to NASA commentator Rob Navius, there's a series of what are referred to by NASA as role reversals. If you had a chance to watch the reentry video that NASA shared from the Artemis I mission, you'll have undoubtedly noticed that you see the camera view shift from the left to the right, and then back again a few times. These are intentional rolls that heat as they down sight. The vehicle is set to reach speeds of below the speed of sound or become subsonic at about 7:02 and 25 seconds p.m. Central Time, roughly 8.5 or nearly 9 minutes after the beginning of entry interface. The start of that period of interface is expected at about 6:53 p.m. Eastern, or Central, 7:53 p.m. Eastern.
Integrity Houston, in EI attitude.
We see the same, waiting for the 180 rolls. And we have a great view of the moon out window 2. Looks a little smaller than yesterday.
Guess we'll have to go back.
Little tongue-in-cheek exchange there between Commander Reed Wiseman and Capcom Jackie Mahaffey, saying we'll just have to go back to the moon since it looks so small. Of course, that is the plan for the Artemis program, is to start a clip of regular cadence missions to the moon. Artemis III will be a mission in Earth orbit. Artemis IV set to be the first crewed landing, targeting early 2028 if all goes well between now and then. The next big milestone following the period of re-entry through the atmosphere, where we have a roughly 6-minute communication blackout between mission control and the Orion spacecraft, there will be a series of parachute deployments. First, we'll see the forward bay chutes that pull the cover off the top of the vehicle, and that allows the drogue chutes to be deployed. Forward cover chute deployment expected at about 7:03 p.m. 22 seconds Central Time, when the spacecraft is at roughly 23,946 feet. If you'd like to learn more about the super detailed explanation with some really nice visuals of the parachutes, we've got a video up for you right now on the YouTube channel, so you can take a look at that at your own time. Following the deployment of the drogue chutes, which are deployed at about 23,483 feet, the vehicle will have slowed to a velocity of about 24,000 feet per second, down to 470 feet per second. Following the severing of the drogue chutes, then there will be some lead chutes that will be used to bring out the 3 main parachutes, those orange and white chutes that we saw back at the Artemis I splashdown. This will look through one of the windows on the Orion spacecraft.
Orion in the EI roll 180 attitude.
Looks good on board, Jackie.
Time to splashdown 22 minutes, 43 seconds. Again, you're looking through one of the windows of integrity. You can see the reflection of, based on the window angle, I'm guessing this is Reed Wiseman that you're seeing most of the movement from. Might see a little reflection from pilot Victor Glover as well. About 9 minutes away from the point of entry interface. It's coming up at 6:53 p.m. Central. Roughly 21.5 minutes remaining before the planned splashdown of Orion Integrity, the finale of the Artemis II mission, as the crew is nearing their home planet, joining the rest of us back here on Earth, with, of course, the exception of those who are serving
Integrity
aboard
back in
Tiangong
EI
Space
attitude.
Station and the International Space Station.
We see the same on board, Jackie. Houston, purge is complete. Crew and vehicle are configured for entry.
Houston copies.
And we're in step 37, transferring nav state to BFS. And Houston, in instruction 509, we are not below 0.2.
Integrity, no action required.
Integrity.
"19 minutes and counting to splashdown." The entry interface is coming up here in now less than 5 minutes time. And shortly after entry interface begins, there's a planned loss of communications with the crew, expected to last a total of 6 minutes.
Houston, everything is looking good on board. Just confirm no pre-EI downloads.
Per NASA's Rob Navius, the period of loss of signal with the crew, which is expected, will last exactly 6 minutes time once it does begin. Now about 18.5 minutes to splashdown, about 4 minutes away from the start of entry interface. And a beautiful view of the Earth below. Orion Integrity is coming home. Local time 6:50 p.m. Central, 7:50 p.m. Eastern, 23:50 UTC. Fewer than 17 minutes to the targeted splashdown time of 7:07 and 8 seconds p.m. Central. Less than 3 minutes now to the start of the entry interface. So Orion will be about 400,000 feet above the Earth's surface. Spacecraft will be traveling nearly 35 times the speed of sound when it hits the top of the atmosphere. If you're just now joining us, you're watching Spaceflight Now's special live coverage of the finale of Artemis II as the crew is making their way towards a splashdown in the waters of the Pacific Ocean. We've got about 16 minutes remaining before the vehicle is set to hit the ocean waters. And the crew on board the USS John P. Murtha is standing by with assets from the US Navy and NASA ready to respond to Orion once it does hit the water. They will verify that the vehicle is safe to approach with the rest of the recovery assets, and then they will proceed to move in and bring the crew out of Orion and helicopter them over to the USS Murtha. 15.5 minutes to targeted splashdown. Recovery area is go to receive. We're about 2 minutes away, a little bit less from the start of the entry interface period. And again, less than a minute after that starts, we'll have a 6-minute loss of communications with the crew. This is expected. We will not be seeing visuals from the Orion spacecraft, nor will the ground be receiving telemetry data during that 6-minute period of time. Less than 1 minute now to the start of entry interface. Earlier this afternoon, the Orion spacecraft shifted over from communications using the Deep Space Network to the Near Space Network in a series of satellites known as TDRS. 1 minute to entry interface officially now. 14.5 minutes until splashdown.
Integrity, 1 minute to a 6-minute blackout.
Integrity.
Just under 10 seconds to entry interface. Shortly after that, less than a minute, will be the planned 6-minute loss of signal. Entry interface now happening. You'll see that roll procedure that we mentioned earlier, where they will start to dissipate some of the energy. We're coming up to the point of loss of signal with the crew. Again, this is a planned loss of signal, which will last 6 minutes in duration. Seeing the glow of the plasma and the planned loss of signal underway. This now a visualization of what the Orion spacecraft is going through as it makes its way back towards a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. And of course, during this period, because there is a blackout in communications, we will not be seeing the crew. We will not be hearing from the crew. The peak heating point of the spacecraft is nearly upon us. There's a tracking camera that's got the first visuals of Orion. This is a G5 aircraft. That's got first eyes on integrity. That tiny dot has 4 souls on board, making its way towards a splashdown in just a little more than 12 minutes time. The Orion heat shield taking the brunt of between 4,000 to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit of heat as it streaks through the atmosphere. Now about a third of a way through the anticipated loss of signal with the vehicle. Still a few more minutes to go before that planned loss of signal wraps up and teams can work to reestablish connection with Orion. Again, you're looking at the big box at a visualization of the spacecraft and what the mission planners are anticipating that the vehicle is experiencing right now. We've got about 11 minutes, 11 seconds to plan splashdown. Coming up on the final 9 minutes to the planned splashdown of Orion Integrity. NASA reporting that one of their visual assets, a WB-57, has a visual on Orion, as well as other naval assets. Less than 9 minutes remaining to splashdown. Just a couple minutes remaining before the end of this planned loss of signal with the crew. Again, this was a planned loss of signal as the vehicle is going through the most intense portion of atmospheric reentry, experiencing temperatures to that heat shield of between 4,000 to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Data analysis underway from Integrity. 7 minutes, 20 seconds to planned splashdown time. Got a visual of Orion. It's appears to be a frozen image, though. Local time, 7 p.m. Central. Point at which we are expecting to get reacquisition of signal from Orion shortly. Teams are working on that. You can see some broken up views from the tracking assets that NASA and the U.S.
Integrity,
Navy have in the
Houston,
vicinity.
comm check, post-blackout.
Houston, Integrity, we have you loud and clear.
Your trajectory is nominal and your recovery teams have visual.
Guidance looks good.
No action for the enabled internal camera controller fail.
Integrity.
As you just heard, we've heard now from Commander Reed Wiseman on board Orion Integrity, communicating with Capcom Jackie Mahaffey. Just a little more than 5.5 minutes to splashdown. Local time 7:01 p.m. Central. In just about 2 minutes' time, we'll see the start of the deployment sequence of the parachutes, beginning with the forward base chutes. First, the cover will release, and then those forward base chutes will release themselves and allow the drogue parachutes to begin to deploy and help to stabilize the Orion spacecraft.
Integrity, impact to the camera controller fail is no cab 1 views of the chute.
Integrity.
Good tracking shot of the Integrity spacecraft making its way down towards the waters of the Pacific Ocean, towards a targeted splashdown side. This view coming from NASA's WB-57 plane. Coming up at about 7:03 and 22 seconds, we should see the forward bay cover jettison and those chutes deploy. Cloud viewing permits. 4 minutes and counting. The pyros for the jettison of the forward bay cover are armed. Coming up to the deployment of that forward bay. There you go. You see those 3 chutes coming up. There are the drogues. 2 good drogue chutes.
And Houston, we're visual 2 drogues out the window.
We copy, we see
Less
them.
than 3.5 minutes remaining. After the drogue chutes are cut, then the pilot parachutes will deploy. Those are essentially the leads for the 3 main parachutes that we'll see here.
Integrity, good rates on 2 drogues.
We see the same on board.
NASA reports a good descent rate of the Orion spacecraft, fewer than 3 minutes to splashdown. Under 10,000 feet on the Orion spacecraft, still using the drogue chutes as per the plan. There's the cut, there are the leads, and there are the mains. They start off in this sort of hot dog-like assembly, and then there will be a series of pyros that cut, and we'll see them now in sort of a light bulb style. In a few seconds, yes, there we go to the full deployment of the
Houston,
parachutes.
3
and
good mains out the window.
Houston concurs, good rates, and we see 3 good-looking parachutes.
3 good mains, good words from the crew, good words from Capcom Jackie Mahaffey. Orion is less than 2 minutes away from splashdown.
Integrity, cabin pressure indicates no need for hydrazine checks.
Integrity copies.
Orion Integrity and her crew are making a gentle descent down to the waters of the Pacific Ocean, now just over a minute away to touching down. Gentle seas await them with a wave height of less than 4 feet. Less than a minute to splash down, and the voyage of this hardy spacecraft and the crew on board of more than 694,000 miles nearing its finale.
Houston Integrity, Splashdown, sending post-landing command now.
Copy,
And we
Splashdown,
have
waiting on VLDR.
Splashdown. Orion Integrity, welcome home to Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen, the first humans to travel around the moon and back again, are now on our spaceship Earth. Welcome home to the crew of Artemis II. The vehicle is reported in a good orientation, referred to as stable 1, which means the heat shield is down below and the docking hatch is up above. There will be a series of support balloons inflated by helium to ensure that the spacecraft stays in this upright position, though. They'll be similar to the ones that we saw back during the Apollo days, and of course, for those who watched the return of the spacecraft that flew on the Artemis I mission back in 2022. There's a view on board
Integrity,
the recovery
Houston,
vessel.
contact on VLDR.
Houston, we have out and clear on VLDR. How else?
We have you the same. We'll meet you over in post-landing.
What a ride, Houston. What a journey. We are stable 1, 4 green crew members.
Houston, copies all.
Just to clarify on the status update from Commander Reed Wiseman, 4 green crew members means that they're all in good health, good spirits. Unofficial splashdown time logged by NASA as happening at 7:07 and 47 seconds p.m. Central, 8:07 and 47 seconds p.m. Eastern. 00747 UTC with a mission elapsed time from liftoff to splashdown of 9 days, 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 35 seconds. Recovery team is beginning their work, and you can see those large spheres that are being inflated by helium at the top of the Orion vehicle to keep it in the correct orientation. And those flashing lights help to orient the recovery assets as well. You're taking a look at the recovery vessel here. Again, this ship is the USS John P. Murtha. Among the folks on board this vessel, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman overseeing the first crewed mission from the moon since 1972. This is a view from one of the naval helicopters looking down at the Orion spacecraft with the glinting waters of the Pacific Ocean surrounding the vehicle.
Integrity Houston for SAR beacon and radio.
SAR beacon is in for 06, and we're powering the radio now. Go ahead.
We see the beacon on, however, the recovery team is not seeing the signal. Your SAR radio uses the same antenna, so you may run into trouble with the radio.
Okay, copy. We are also powering up the sat phone now.
The flight director who has been in charge of the reentry and recovery operations is Rick Henfling. He's working through with the flight directors right now to begin to power down the Orion spacecraft. No dangerous gases are reported emanating from the vehicle, and so soon the naval divers and the fast boats will start to make their approach towards the Orion spacecraft and set up a large inflatable ring around the vehicle that's called the front porch. This is part of the apparatus that allows the team to access the vehicle.
28 per hour remain on this frequency.
We copy.
Can you say again? That was very weak and broken.
Integrity, Houston did not call.
Copy that, Houston. It might have been on the SAR radio. Stand by.
As the crew is brought out of the Orion spacecraft, they will go in the order of Christina first. Christina is in seat number 3, which is the closest to the Orion crew module hatch. Next out will be Victor Glover, the pilot. That is the next closest seat to the crew module hatch. That'll be followed by Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen, and then finally, Commander Reed Wiseman will be the 4th member to egress from the vehicle. You can see the recovery vessel there on the horizon. That is the USS John P. Murtha. Crew splashed down at a gentle velocity of about 19 miles per hour. Quite the shift of going from about 35 times the speed of sound as they began atmospheric entry.
Integrity, Houston, with no joy on SAR and SAT phone, we'd like you to command an additional 15 minutes for a total of 30-minute power down delay.
All right, Jackie, we have selected T/D+30. No joy on SAR radio or sat phone. And stand by, we have the master diver on SAR radio. Please hold comms.
Hey, Lily. Excuse me. Hey, Jackie. We just got the master diver on SAR.
Integrity, Houston, if you are happy with your comm with master diver, you can go back to the 15-minute power down.
To make its approach to the Orion spacecraft. Integrity going through the process of powering down the Orion spacecraft. They're home away from home for the past 9 days, 1 hour and change from liftoff. With the Orion spacecraft powering down, they are communicating with, as you heard, the master diver by a SAR, or synthetic aperture radar, satellite phone.
And Houston, Integrity, I've been trying to call you on the sat phone and not getting an answer there either.
Concur, we haven't had anything come through.
Correction, search and rescue phone, not synthetic aperture radar. That's something else entirely. Crossing wires there. Crew's been in the water now for just about 12 and a half minutes.
Houston, if you can relay
recovery
to recovery that we hear them, but it does not appear as though they are hearing us.
Houston copies, and Reed, just to confirm, you are pushing the PTT on the radio. Integrity Houston, for sat phone, we are going to attempt to call you.
Good idea. Standing by.
And Jackie, yes, we are pushing the push to talk, the two buttons on the left side of the radio below the up-down arrows. We are utilizing them. I'm rebooting the radio to see if we get good comms.
Okay, we copy all. And just to confirm, you are seeing that you're touchdown plus 3030 for power, correct?
That's affirmative.
You can see the wide array of recovery assets that are marshaling close in the vicinity of the Orion spacecraft. Crew are troubleshooting communications options as the recovery work is getting ready to begin here. As we're watching the process of the recovery effort and awaiting the approach of the naval ship boats here to set up the inflatable front porch that will allow for a good extraction of the astronauts. I do want to thank one of our channel members
Houston
who
Integrity,
is
we're in
also
contact
named
with
Artemis.
NRD. Please do not reply.
By as these comms are sorted, but want to thank Artemis for the very generous super chat. And coincidentally,
And Houston, please don't reply. NRD, very weak but readable. Master Diver, we can hear, but they cannot hear us.
still sorting out communications between the crew of Integrity and the master diver from the U.S. Navy. One of our channel members, Artemis, saying that he also serves in the U.S. Navy and once served on board the recovery vessel that's being used here today, the USS John P. Murtha, which is very cool connection, Artemis. And thank you again for the wonderful super chat message and for growing our community here by 150 new channel members. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And Houston on OE1, is there any chance to tie us into NRD?
Checking.
Once the astronauts are able to be brought out of the Orion spacecraft, they will travel back to the USS Murtha on board two naval helicopters. Victor and Christina will ride on one, Reed and Jeremy will ride on another.
To be able to share and experience this moment with everyone together. And of course, as you just said, yes, here with NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. Administrator, how did you feel getting to witness this and seeing NASA at its best?
Oh, I mean, I'm honestly, I'm still at a loss for words. I mean, you know, like the childhood Jared right now can't believe what I just saw. I mean, almost been waiting my whole lifetime to see this. And then it's NASA Administrator. I just couldn't be more proud of the entire workforce, the years, the effort, the late nights, all the hard work from across the country that contributed to this incredible moment right now. And yeah, I'm incredibly grateful too for our teams here on the John P. Murtha right now.
Yeah, look at them behind us here.
Got everybody. What do you guys think? We just brought some astronauts back from the moon, huh? Unbelievable. Thank you. Yeah, so grateful to the Navy, the sailors that are here, the NASA teams. I mean, this is a joint effort that's on their way right now. These recovery forces are getting out to our Orion spacecraft, to Integrity, get our astronauts back on the ship safely.
Yeah, and this is not just an accomplishment for NASA. This is an accomplishment for humanity. Again, a historic mission to the moon and back. How does this make you feel, and what do you hope people take away from this?
Well, I'll tell you, you know, I think about the crew members that we've all had an opportunity to observe over the last 10 days, right? I mean, they're absolutely professional astronauts. I mean, wonderful communicators, almost poets. But then I think these were the ambassadors from humanity to the stars that we sent out there right now. And I can't imagine a better crew than the Artemis II crew that just completed a perfect mission right now. So yes, it's a huge moment for everybody, right? I mean, we are back in the business of sending astronauts to the moon, bringing them back safely, and to set up for a series more. I mean, this is not a once in a lifetime, which you hear sometimes around here. It's like, this was a once in a lifetime. No, it's not. This is just the beginning. We are going to get back into doing this with frequency, sending missions to the moon until we land on it in 2028 and start building our base.
Yeah, are we going to build on the momentum for Artemis III? I mean, it's just around the corner.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's, you know, part of me too. Like, I can't wait to get the crew off of Integrity right now, but also getting Integrity back on this ship so we can start taking a look at it, because all that data is so precious to us right now. I mean, we are going to definitely want to take a good look at the thermal protection system. We're going to want to download all the data they couldn't transmit back to us and use that to inform Artemis III. But we're already making progress, right? You had SRB segments already showing up at KSC. Core stage for Artemis III is rolling out on April 20th. We're getting Mobile Launcher 1 back in vehicle assembly building. So yes, there is a lot to celebrate right now on a mission well accomplished for Artemis 2, and at the same time, we got to start getting ready for 3.
Amazing. And last question, you know, for people who joined us for all 10 days, see what we can accomplish together with our national partners. Going to keep doing
like the best and brightest across the NASA workforce from across the country, our industry partners, our international partners. We had a Canadian Space Agency astronaut on board in Jeremy. We had the European service module. And you think in the days leading up to this launch, I mean, 48 hours prior to launching Artemis II, I was meeting with the Italian Space Agency. We signed a memorandum of understanding to build a habitation module on the moon. I mean, you have countries, all of our allies and partners coming together saying, we are committed to this effort. We are returning to the moon. We're doing it to stay. We are building that enduring presence. We are going to master the skills on the surface of the moon so someday we can undertake missions to Mars. It's just an incredibly exciting time, and we're not going at it alone. We're bringing everybody along with us.
Absolutely. And speaking of everyone, one more time, we're going to ask the crew here, you guys ready to land on the moon? Awesome. I love that. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Administrator. Appreciate you being here. We're, of course, going to stay on to watch the crew get extracted from Orion. So stay tuned, and we'll see you back here shortly.
And we've just been hearing from NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman talking with Public Affairs Officer Megan Cruz from the Kennedy Space Center. They're aboard the USS John P. Murtha. Meanwhile, crews are continuing to work to establish the correct communications between the crew of the Orion spacecraft and the naval team that is preparing to approach Orion and set up the inflatable apparatus around the vehicle called the front porch. This is a large inflatable stabilization collar that will help with the recovery work for the astronauts. Orion Integrity officially has been powered down, an important step for this recovery work. with Rick Henfling now officially handing over control of this part of the mission from the team at the Johnson Space Center over to the Exploration Ground Systems team with the official power down of the Orion spacecraft. Local time here in Houston, Texas is 7:33, a little more than 25 minutes post splashdown of the Orion Integrity spacecraft. The vehicle, again, has been powered down as teams are preparing to close in and set up the inflatable raft called the front porch. The large spheres that you're seeing up top on the Orion vehicle are called the Crew Module Uprighting System, a series of helium-filled bags that, as the name suggests, keep the vehicle in its planned upright position. The uprighting system was always going to deploy no matter what configuration the Orion spacecraft ended up splashing down in. In the off-nominal scenario where the Orion spacecraft had landed outside of the planned recovery zone, the crew module uprighting system would be able to keep the Orion spacecraft in an upright and stable position for about 24 hours if needed. Part of the reason for that is because the Orion spacecraft needs to be in this upright position in order for its communication systems to operate correctly. Local time here, 7:36 p.m. Central, 8:36 Eastern, 0036 UTC for our friends around the world. If you're just checking in with us, you're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the return to Earth for the Artemis II astronauts. And as you can see, got a good vehicle safely in the waters of the Pacific Ocean. A nice helicopter panoramic view of Orion integrity with the 4 orange helium-filled balloons that make up the crew module uprighting system. You can see in the wide shot the various fast boats and other members of the initial recovery team are in the vicinity of the Orion spacecraft, and they're working to establish good communications with the crew inside. It's been a little bit tricky with their SAR phone, so they've been troubleshooting that. With the Orion spacecraft now powered off, though,
This is Mission Control Houston. After talking to the flight dynamics folks, we have a bit of a refinement on the splashdown time for you. Their computation shows a splashdown time of 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time, 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time.
local time now, 7:39 p.m. Central, 8:39 p.m. Eastern, a refinement from NASA of the official splashdown time, clocked at 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time, meaning the official mission elapsed time from liftoff to splashdown was 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds. You can see one of the naval fast boats starting to make a closer approach to the Orion spacecraft. Not quite making it up there to the vehicle yet to set up the front porch, but we expect that to happen in the not too distant future. Right now, that first fast boat that you saw that in this wide shot is making a hazard assessment before they make a close approach to set up the front porch. You can see those so-called sniffers that are being used by the folks in the naval fast boat, continuing to make their assessments on the safety of the Orion spacecraft before they go ahead and start to set up the inflatable front porch, which should happen here momentarily. With the Orion spacecraft powered off and the recovery teams making their assessments on approach and beginning of the deployment of the front porch, the responsibility for the Orion spacecraft and the crew on board will shift from Mission Control Center in Houston to Exploration Ground Systems. The clock has been updated, as you can see, to reflect the official splashdown time of 7:07:27 p.m. Central. For those who weren't here with us when we shared part of our conversation with the head of Exploration Ground Systems, here's more on what happens now with their team and the responsibility of EGS over Orion and its crew. You know, once Orion splashes down, knock on wood, everything continues to go. Not only, all good chutes come out, Orion's in the water. Where does the EGS team step into the recovery equation and the process of transporting Orion back to Florida?
So, it's interesting. The EGS team has important responsibilities on the front of the mission, getting to launch. And then on the back end of the mission, and we lead the recovery efforts for Artemis. And our NASA recovery director, Lily Villarreal, is on board the USS Martha as we speak. They are at the designated landing site, and it turns out the weather was good to land at our prime landing site, which is about 38 nautical miles off the coast of San Diego. And so, during the reentry process, we deploy helicopters from the what we call the LPD ship, the USS Martha, and we also deploy small boats. So, we get on station about 24 hours before the landing, and then during the landing sequence, once it starts getting ready to re-enter the atmosphere, we move to what we call waypoint Alpha, which is approximately 6 miles from the actual landing site. And so Lily and her team in the Navy are waiting for Orion to come out of the blackout occurs during reentry. And once they achieve GPS lock, the vehicle achieves GPS lock, we can move to waypoint Alpha or Bravo, and it'll be a little closer to the landing site. And the idea is, that it might be 3 miles. Lily and the team is figuring that out as we speak. Mm-hmm. But the point is to get to the splashdown zone as quickly as possible. Now, to answer your question, when does the handoff occur? So after splashdown, the flight ops folks here at the Johnson Space Center stay in control of the spacecraft. And once we've determined that the spacecraft is in a good configuration, they will initiate, and we have comm with them, they will initiate a vehicle power down. And when that happens, transfer of responsibility for the recovery operations transfers to the Exploration Ground Systems team, namely our recovery director and the rest of the team on board the ship and in the boats. And that includes Navy divers, it includes our contractors from the Comet contract are there, and representatives from the Orion program, health and medical officers. So it's a pretty big team that can address any situation or task that's required. So the first thing we'll do is we'll examine, do a visual inspection of the spacecraft, make sure there's no significant visible hazards, make sure the CMOS bags are deployed. That's a crew module uprighting system. Those are those big balloons on top of the spacecraft. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have divers in PPBE. What that means is that protective equipment, so they can approach the spacecraft, and they've got instruments that can test for toxic gases, like ammonia, for example. And once they clear all that out, then we'll start putting, the flotation devices, attach it to the spacecraft itself.
The front porch.
Right? Yep, the front porch, exactly, and the horse collar, and then prepare to open the hatch, and we'll have medical personnel and the Navy divers do a quick assessment of the crew, and then the recovery operation continues. So our goal is to, within about 2 hours, have the crew back on board the ship. Mm-hmm. And then after that's complete, then we'll continue to work towards getting the spacecraft into the well deck of the LPD ship, the Bertha. And that roughly will take about 6 hours.
And of course, the crew is trained to be able to open the hatch from the inside if necessary, but nominally they're hands off once they're in the water, right?
Indeed. Yep. Yeah. The idea is to have the recovery forces get over there and open the hatch and help them with the egress. Yep.
Lead of the recovery of both the Orion spacecraft as well as crew on board. We're now 42 minutes post splashdown as the fast boat is working to situate the Orion spacecraft in preparation for the deployment of the inflatable front porch, the stabilization collar that will help with crew egress. Status of the astronauts on board integrity is that they continue to be in good health, good spirits, awaiting their departure from their home for the past more than a week and a half.
Hey, Rob. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Yeah, we're back here on the bow of the recovery ship where there are still plenty of people peering out into the water. We are not very far from the action everyone is seeing on their screen now. The Orion spacecraft integrity in the ocean, surrounded by a number of recovery boats. As Rob has been saying, in those recovery boats, NASA and Navy personnel specifically trained to get the astronauts out of Orion. In some of our wide shots, you can probably see that there are 6 boats out in the water. More than 40 people out in the water right now on those boats. First order of business is to set up the front porch and the stabilization collar. You might also hear it referred to as a stab collar. Basically just to make sure that Orion stays upright, doesn't sway in the water too much, again, to make it easier for recovery forces to get the astronauts out. Again, we splashed down in the Pacific Ocean just after 5 p.m. Pacific time here. It's a requirement by NASA to be able to get the crew out of Orion within 2 hours of splashdown. So doing great on time so far. Plenty of time. No rush either. I was speaking to NASA flight surgeon Rick Schuring earlier in this broadcast, and he said to me, no rush to get the crew out. Just want to make sure that they're feeling good. And whenever they're ready to take their step out of Orion and onto that large raft, the front porch, folks will be ready. And as there are mission audio loops in mission control in Houston, there is a mission audio loop here on the ship. And it was just reported out that the side hatch is open. Side hatch of integrity is open. You're getting these beautiful shots from our aerial assets. The ship itself, where I'm on, just 3,000 yards away. Again, plenty of people on the boat here, glued to the side closest to where they can see all this action. And again, with just 3,000 yards separating us, great views from the bow here. You can see now that side hatch is open. One of the Navy personnel is about to get inside there. In they go. In total, 4 will go into Orion. So it'll be a little bit of a tight squeeze, but the goal is to have a recovery personnel with each astronaut assessing them. boats getting closer now. Again, that one that's right up against Orion, those are the divers that will go in to the spacecraft to check on each of the astronauts. These other boats will begin doing a number of things, putting on that stabilization collar onto Orion, building that front porch. Eventually, they will retrieve the parachutes, as well as tow Orion back to the well deck of the recovery ship here.
That towing process will take a significantly longer period of time than the recovery of the astronauts. Could be up to 6 hours
And
post
so as we
splashdown.
wait for the Navy and NASA personnel to get their assessment of the crew inside of Orion, why don't we toss it back to Rob for an update?
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Here in Mission Control, Flight Director Rick Henfling and the entry team of flight controllers still on duty. The vehicle has been powered down for some time now. There are no hazardous gases emanating from integrity. That, of course, allowed the recovery personnel to approach the vehicle and then begin that inflatable raft, the front porch, alongside of the vehicle that will enable the crew to be extracted one by one onto the of a moment or two to land back before they're headed into two hovering Navy helicopters, 2 crew members for each helicopter, for a short flight back to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha.
It's been just about 52.5 minutes since the splashdown of Orion Integrity as the naval forces work to erect the so-called front porch, that stabilization ring that will allow for the extraction of the crew. The little bit that reflecting sunlight, there's a point that is the crew module side hatch that has been opened. The Artemis II is a nice breath of fresh air from right here on good old planet Earth. And you can see the pieces of the front porch are starting to be deployed. Or it looks like the lead line actually. See one of those, or it looks like at least 2 naval divers in the water there just to the left of Orion from this camera's perspective. And yes, this actually looks to be the front porch, which will be inflated as they're bringing it out of that fast boat. It'll be circled around the Orion spacecraft and will help to stabilize the vehicle as the astronauts are brought out one by one. Order of egress from Orion expected to be Mission Specialist Christina Cook, followed by Pilot Victor Glover, then Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen, and then finally Commander Reed Wiseman. Both members of the Exploration Ground Systems team, along with folks at the U.S. Navy and other members of the Department of Defense, have been preparing for this recovery operation for years at this point, conducting multiple levels of various recovery scenarios, some with the full complement of recovery assets that are being seen here today, others at varying levels of personnel support. These have included at times the Artemis II astronauts themselves, also other members of the astronaut office, like the astronaut who has been at the Capcom position in mission control for this final portion of the White Flight Control Room's operation in time here. That is NASA astronaut Stan Love. If you're just joining us, local time is 8:05 p.m. Central, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, 01:05 UTC for those of you joining around the world. This mission from partners around the globe, a good view actually now peering inside the Orion spacecraft. A little bit dark to see inside, but a nice little peek at the Artemis II crew. The astronaut that will be closest to that hatch is NASA astronaut Christina Cook.
Of the stabilization collar, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what is this stabilization collar?
This is what's going to stabilize the capsule out there in the ocean. We don't know how good the weather or the waves will be that day, so this will help prevent any unnecessary occurrences from happening, stabilizing the capsule and the astronauts inside.
So basically, this is a float that will go around Orion. I'm assuming that what they're doing right now, these are the lines that will attach the collar onto Orion.
That is correct.
And so what are they doing here?
So we've got the lower line that will secure the inflation device before we inflate it. That gives us the go-ahead that it's secure in space, and then we'll inflate it. And then once that is done, we'll undo all the carabiners and get this orange line on top tied in the same fashion. And then this will be secured to the capsule, and the astronauts can safely take their first steps out of the capsule onto the front porch.
And how long will it take them to set up the stabilization
We
collar?
should definitely be able to handle this in under 10 minutes.
Okay, wow. And then you just mentioned the front porch. So basically, after they set up the stabilization collar, then they set up what's called the front porch here.
That's correct.
Okay, and what's the front porch?
Front porch is basically a bigger waiting room for the astronauts to sit in while we wait for the helicopters to show up and grab them.
Okay, so the medical team that was inside with the crew, they're going to help them out and onto the front porch?
That is correct.
And then what happens here?
We have higher trained medical personnel also on board the front porch that will give them lookovers and just make sure they're okay while we wait for the helicopters to show up.
Okay. How does it feel? I mean, your team, you, to be part of a mission that's returning astronauts from the moon in more than 50 years?
We all feel extremely honored to be a part of this, as well as a bigger mission for the Navy and joining up with NASA to do great things.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like you and your team are ready?
Yes, very ready.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again,
You're taking a live look inside. You're looking at entry flight director Rick Henfling, excuse me, who is giving a nice speech and congratulations to all the various flight controllers who've and making this possible. And the mission is in the hands of Exploration Ground Systems. If they do bring this audio up, we'll listen in.
Pausing now to listen to some internal audio loops. Again, the operations team here on the ship communicating with everyone out on the water. It seems like currents are hindering them a little bit from unfurling and inflating the stabilization collar as well as the front porch. But again, the requirement to get the crew out within 2 hours of splashdown, plenty of time. So no concerns just yet. But as calm as the water looks, yeah, it looks like it's hindering the teams just a tad. You can see in some of our shots that side hatch still open. Again, inside, there are now 8 people inside. 4 divers, Navy divers, all with medical training, each assigned to an astronaut each. Making sure that they're comfortable, feeling good. As you've heard us say in the broadcast, you know, they expect a little bit of discomfort. Again, these astronauts just traveled back to Earth at 25,000 miles an hour, a nearly 695,000 mile journey around the moon. If you think you get car sick. Again, 6 boats out there, lots of gear with them, just in case, right? As we said, the crew reported feeling great. But again, all those folks out there in case they weren't, right? NASA is all about making sure we think about every situation that can happen. And so, of course, wanted to be ready in case any of our astronauts needed more medical attention while out there in the water. You see now teams, again, trying to set up the stabilization collar and front porch for the crew to get out of Orion. They need both, right? The stabilization collar will keep Orion from swaying as you see it is doing now. And then they will connect the front porch to the stabilization collar so that the crew can take 2 steps and they will be in the front porch. Not a lot of chatter on the mission audio loops. That's a good thing. Again, things proceeding pretty nominally, even if they're fighting some currents out there on the Pacific Ocean. Again, the goal, setting up the stabilization collar and the front porch so that the crew can rest comfortably in the front porch, get placed into harnesses so that 2 helicopters can lift them off the front porch and onto the USS John Murtha here. The helicopters are going to take turns picking up an astronaut. So again, Helo 1 and Helo 2. Okay, and the recovery team here on the ship just got a report from the undersea medical officer who is inside the capsule with the crew. He is reporting all 4 members are green. All of our 4 astronauts, Reed, Victor, Christina, Jeremy, green, meaning they are feeling great, not the complexion of their skin. They are feeling great, happy to be home, and ready to be extracted as soon as possible. And so, as I was saying, we have 2 helicopters circling the activity you're seeing on the water right now. Each will take turns picking up an astronaut. So Helo 1 will come on in, hover above the front porch, about 40 feet above the front porch. A Navy recovery specialist will be hoisted down into the front porch.
The restricted maneuvering doctrine is in effect.
We'll connect to the first astronaut, which we're expecting to be Christina. And then Helo 2 comes around, picks up Jeremy, while Helo 1 stays above head. And then Helo 1 will come back in for another astronaut, and then Helo 2 for the last astronaut, and then back to the flight deck here on the recovery ship. I was talking to Assistant Artemis Recovery Director Paul Sierpinski. He said helos are a much quicker, safer way to get on board. They did actually consider boats, but then if you think about it, longer time, the crew would have to move through more of the ship. This way the helos will give a more direct, quicker route to the medical bay for our 4 astronauts. Beautiful shots from our aerial and imagery teams. Clouds have dissipated for a clear view from the bow of the recovery ship here. You can still see divers in the water there. Encircling Orion, that is that stabilization collar we've been telling you about. As you saw in that interview just a few minutes ago, they have to first connect it to Orion, and then once it's secured onto Orion, they can inflate it, and then they'll further secure it with other harnesses and lines. about an hour and 10 minutes since splashdown in the Pacific Ocean here. Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy back home after a history-making mission to the moon and back. And if you missed what we said just a couple of minutes ago, the undersea medical officer inside with the crew in Orion, reporting all 4 crew members feeling great. Progress being made there on the stabilization column, beginning to inflate it. And it looks like unfold more than out in the water right now. And those NATO and NASA personnel have been in the water for now about 4 hours. The reason why they had to get out so early is just to stage everything. And actually here on the ship, when there are flight operations happening, you can't have anything else, right? Just because the flight deck can be a dangerous place. So they just want to focus on planes coming and going from the ship. So that's why they wanted to get the boats in the water to make sure that they have all the time they needed for the flight ops. And then the same crew here out in the water will stay out in the water a number of hours after we recover the crew and get them back on the ship, because then they have to hurry around. All right, that stabilization collar looking good around Orion. We're now seeing some recovery personnel getting on to that collar. Again, they need to further attach it to Orion to make sure that it can really prop up the spacecraft. It's basically lifting it up off of the water just a tad. Again, so it's not so so it doesn't sway so much in the water there. And now that front porch looks like it's nearly fully inflated as well. You can see a much larger surface area. And so once the crew get out of Orion, they can stretch their legs a little bit on this front porch, get some fresh air. And enjoy this beautiful day here on their home planet. It appears teams now are about to connect the front porch to the stabilization collar. And at that point, when both are secure, we should soon see astronauts come out of Orion.
As you've been hearing, teams are setting up for the Artemis II crew
All
members
these
to
views
start.
you see also being fed to the Landing Force Operations Center here on the ship. Of course, it is very important for our recovery teams leading the mission to have all the views that you're seeing as well. Again, listening to their communication loop here on the ship. Very quiet, which is a good thing. It means things are going pretty nominally, meaning as expected.
First astronaut we're expecting to see out of Orion should be mission specialist Christina Cook.
Again, all this activity happening just 3,000 yards away from the ship. So that means this will be a very quick flight back on the helicopters for the crew. 2-3 minutes, and then they'll be back here on the ship.
I know.
Okay, saw a thumbs up from one of the personnel on the front porch. It looks like they're now getting ready to deploy what they call the Air Rescue Vest, ARV. And so this is the harness that each crew member will get into in order to be hoisted into the helicopters. Again, those helicopters hovering just about 40 feet above the front porch when they're ready to pick up each crew member.
As you heard from Megan earlier, NASA has a requirement that all 4 astronauts need to be out by 2 hours post splashdown. So still running within their allotted time now at about 1 hour, 19 minutes, 4 seconds post Orion hitting the water.
This is Mission Control Houston. Behind me, a fairly raucous scene as hundreds of flight controllers have poured into the flight control room here. This is reminiscent of the scene after the final shuttle mission of STS-135, although that was the end of a program. This is only the beginning of a program with the textbook splashdown of integrity and its 4 astronauts. We're standing by for the crew to be extracted from the spacecraft. Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling invited all of these flight controllers who have contributed to this mission to enter the flight control room to have an opportunity to receive well wishes and to share the mutual glow that exists in the wake of a textbook mission for integrity. On the front screen here in Mission Control, a sign that says, "Welcome home, Integrity, taking humanity back to the moon, going further, and returning safely to Earth." So all of that jubilation, part of the post-splashdown activities, even as we await the crew being extracted from the vehicle to be hoisted onto Navy helicopters for the trip back to the USS John P. Murtha. Once again here in Mission Control, this view of the Artemis flight control room, known as the White Flight Control Room. This is the old shuttle flight control room, and now is the home of Artemis missions to the moon and beyond. Once again, quite a few flight controllers were invited in by Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling to share in the jubilation following the successful splashdown of Integrity. That splashdown occurring an hour and 22 minutes ago, as we stand by for the completion of the extraction of the crew, and ultimately they're hoisting onto Navy helicopters for a short flight back to the USS John P. Murtha. Splashdown occurred at 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. I had an opportunity to talk to the head of flight dynamics, Jeff Birch, a moment or two ago. He said the trajectory of Integrity coming through the Earth's atmosphere was so precise, they've never seen anything line up on a ground track like today's entry by Integrity for its splashdown southwest of San Diego. And the initial, you can hear it. Jubilation here in the flight control room. The first crew member is out of Integrity.
This first crew member out of Orion expected to be Christina Cook, just awaiting confirmation of that. Looks like a second astronaut has made their way out. You can see them in their orange Orion crew survival suits. The order of extraction originally was planned to be Christina Cook, then Victor Glover, then Jeremy Hansen, then Reed Wiseman. So if that is still the planned order, both Christina and Victor, the two classmates from the 2013 astronaut class, have now safely made out of Orion, awaiting the first of the two 2009 class members. First out should be from the 09 class of astronauts, Jeremy Hansen, followed by his classmate and commander, Reed Wiseman. First two astronauts making their way out onto that raft beside Orion called the front porch. less than an hour and a half post splashdown. Sunset out west is coming up in about an hour's time, so plenty of daylight left for this process. And the third crew member has safely made it onto the front porch out of Orion integrity. Should be Jeremy Hansen. You can see the first two crew members are seated near the edge of the front porch furthest from Orion. And the final member of Orion integrity, the Artemis II mission commander, Reed Wiseman, will be the final crew member to depart Orion. Hundreds of flight controllers packed into the white flight control room there at the Johnson Space Center, all sharing in this momentous occasion, the first time that humans have been brought back from a trip around the moon in about 53 and a half years. You can see folks wiping away tears of joy. Lots of emotions, I imagine, are just flowing through that room with all the years of work that have been building to today. The return safely of the 4 members of Artemis II. It looks like Reed Wiseman is out of the vehicle. All 4 Artemis II crew members safely out of the vehicle and onto the front porch. Next will be the coordination of the naval helicopters who will airlift one at a time these astronauts. The 2 naval helicopters that will bring these 4 brave souls over to their recovery vessel, the USS John P. Murtha. The astronauts will be lifted skyward one at a time, with both Christina and Victor set to fly on board one helicopter, Reed and Jeremy on another. Here's a wide look back at the white flight control room and back out at sea from one of the helicopters in the vicinity that's here to share the live pictures of this critical recovery effort of the Artemis II crew. If you're just joining us here, you're watching Spaceflight Now's special live coverage of the return of the Artemis II astronauts, having now safely made their way back to Earth. You can see them with their backs to this particular camera view, sitting safely and snugly on board the front porch. They are each no longer wearing the helmets of their Orion crew survival suits, but instead protective helmets for the upcoming helicopter lift. Now, Splashdown 1.5 hours ago. Coming up here in just a moment or two, we should be hearing some words from NASA's Associate Administrator, Amit Kshatriya. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman already gave his remarks from on board the recovery ship, and the Associate Administrator is here in Houston overseeing the mission from this vantage point. Coming up in just a little less than an hour's time, there is expected to be a post-splashdown press conference at the Johnson Space Center, and we will, of course, be in attendance and bring that to you live as it happens. The expected participants in today's post-splashdown press conference and the final big mission press conference wrapping up the Artemis II mission, we should be hearing from the aforementioned Amish Atria, NASA's Associate Administrator, NASA's Exploration, John Quinn, the director of NASA's Exploration Ground Systems, based at the Center in Florida. Again, things can always shift around, but that is the planned lineup for tonight's post-splashdown news briefing here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Again, we're standing by for words from Associate Administrator Amish Atria. A little more than an hour, 32 minutes post-splashdown, we are awaiting the approach of the naval helicopters that will lift the astronauts one by one off of the front porch up to the respective helicopters, of which there are two, and then they will be flown over to the recovery vessel. It is the USS John P. Murtha. Standing by. Let's listen to comments from NASA's Associate Administrator Amish Atria.
A little bit of history made tonight, a little bit of history made over the past few weeks. Your thoughts as this team here basks in the glow of what they just accomplished?
Yeah, Rob, we're here in the control center, and it's kind of overrun with jubilant folks in the mission control, Houston, as well as engineering, and folks that just want to be here, part of it, as we watch our crew get extracted from the vehicle. And my thought is always, always, always about these teams. The team that's in the water right now, pulling the crew out. The team here in Houston that worked so hard over the last 10 days, no sleep to get this done. We still have some work to do to get the crew to the med bay here on the ship. They all look great coming out, so hopefully that won't be too long. I think we saw the administrator on the boat too, giving his thanks to the Navy team on the Mirtha, which they're just an incredible group of sailors. I was able to visit with them a couple weeks ago, and then if you pull it all the way back to the workers and the folks that joined the rocket at Michoud, that made the heat shield tiles that held together tonight, that stacked the vehicle in Florida, that integrated the vehicle in Denver, that fired the engines in Stennis, that fired the boosters in Promontory. I mean, this is the entire team, coming together and being tested by the environment that this machine went through. And they did it right. The work was good. They did it right.
You've said in a number of briefings, of course, and in other forums that this is just the first step. The cadence has to step up, as the administrator has indicated. Now, it's a little early for the full report card on how Integrity did, but did this mission ultimately, from your eyes view, exceed expectations?
It absolutely did. I mean, I was waiting to talk about this until we're in the water, and I think we still have, again, work to do to bring it in and really kind of go through it bolt by bolt and see what we learned. But I mean, so far, given what we learned during the mission and given how we performed on ascent, on entry, I always think about energy in terms of the states that you worry about the most. And every time we put these machines through these incredibly energetic states, they came through. So I'm fairly confident that we made a big step tonight to get us on the path towards the surface. I think the path to the surface is open now. We do have to do all the work, and we'll make sure we talk about that as cleanly as we can. We learned a few things during the mission, but I have to tell you, this was an incredible test of an incredible machine.
From an American psyche standpoint, the Empire State Building was lit up red, white, and blue tonight. Our coverage was seen on baseball stadiums around the major leagues. How captivating was this experience for the American people, for the world, in fact, as we return to the moon?
I have not been able to watch a lot of the coverage as we've progressed through the mission. I will tell you, just from my witness in Florida before launch, and then seeing the people's faces here, and then reading where I can about how things are going. I think this has been a gift to the world from NASA. NASA has given the world a gift, proving to folks all over the place, especially young people. And that, to me, is what this is really about. Young people, when they see what we can do when we work together, when we have teams that collaborate, that it doesn't matter how hard the problems are, we can solve them. I'm hopeful that Artemis II, as folks witness what we were able to do with this incredible crew, this incredible team that we've birthed into the world, scientists and engineers and artists that have been inspired by this. And even if they don't come work in the program, which separately they should come work in the program, because Lord knows we need the help. But even if they don't want to come work in the program, hopefully they grow up to recognize they can do amazing things when they work together and contribute to society and be good citizens and really change the way, the challenges that are coming in the world are overcomable if we work together like this.
And one final question. Flying to the moon, we did it. We've done it again this past week and a half or so. But the engineering that went behind the design of this mission and the precision, the pinpoint precision of this vehicle entering that entry corridor, it's almost mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is incredible when you think about the energies involved and the uncertainties involved. That when we inserted the vehicle into orbit, it was 99.2% down the middle. When we dropped the vehicle right on top of the fleet here, our guys knew exactly where to go, but the guidance was perfect. And it's interesting. I've got this question a lot over the last few weeks about, we did this before 53 years ago, and that. I think, it is a reasonable thing to contemplate, like what's gone on since then. And what I'd tell you is, when we did Apollo, which again, the more we learn about what they did, the more magical it seems what they were able to accomplish given the technology and the learnings that they had. But when we did Apollo, the architects of Apollo, Gilbert, Seaman, von Braun, Mueller, what they really, really wanted to do, as they were contemplating what it meant to expand our range of action to the lunar surface, what they wanted to do was learn how to live and work in space for a long time. They wanted to do that first before they were confident they could expand their range of action to the moon. Now, of course, the politics of the time and the mission at the time was different, and so they had to go straight to the moon and bring people home. And then after that, the program kind of lost its momentum. But after that, NASA kept moving along those paths, right? So we recognized during Apollo that reusability was going to be important. We spent a lot of money on those machines, and we spent a lot of money on these machines here. Even though, but we recognized that reusability was important, which is why we built a winged space plane called Space Shuttle, and then we used that reusable machine to build a space station. And we learned for 25 years how to live and work in space, and have been able to develop technologies that can enable exploration. So really, what I think is now, 53 years later, we're at the point where the architects of Apollo would have been pleased that we're now ready to actually go back to the moon and go back to stay, because we've learned all the things we needed to learn.
There's a lot of people pleased here tonight.
Personnel airborne, getting ready to be brought aboard that helicopter from the U.S. Navy. Helicopter, and the astronauts being hoisted up. Let's go ahead and listen to NASA's Megan Cruz for a status update from the USS Mirtha on recovery efforts.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, back on the bow of the ship here, we are seeing the helicopters circling Orion. The first one there having just completed picking up the first astronaut. Kilo 2 now, hovering just 40 feet above the front porch, lowering a recovery specialist out of the helicopter. That person will touch down in the front porch just there. The crew members already outfitted with a harness that will allow them to quickly attach to the hoisting device. Look at the power of those blades throwing water out at the center there, the front porch, with now 3 astronauts and the recovery specialists. Again, crews already outfitted with a harness vest. And here we go. Second astronaut now off the front porch, getting hoisted into the second helicopter. That helicopter will now hover just a distance away to give room for the first helicopter to come back and pick up the third astronaut. As we wait for that helicopter to come back, make its way back around, just want to mention that the President of the United States called our NASA administrator today while he was on the ship, just minutes after we interviewed him live on our coverage, and congratulated him and NASA on this history-making moment tonight. Helicopter 1 again hovering 40 feet over the front porch. We will soon see another recovery specialist getting lowered onto the front porch. Wow, imagine sitting on that front porch, the wind, the water. But again, the recovery team determines that a helicopter flight back to the ship here would be safer, faster, and more comfortable for our crew who just completed a 10-day mission around the moon. Third astronaut in the air, getting hoisted quickly back into the first helicopter now. That first helicopter now on its way back to the ship here. We will soon see it land in just a few minutes. Again, all this action happening just 3,000 yards away from us, so a very quick flight back to the flight deck. And now the only person left on the front porch, Commander Reed Wiseman. That second helicopter now making its way back over to the front porch. Here it comes. Making its final approach here. The last astronaut, Commander Reed Wiseman, now off the front porch and almost into the second helicopter. Both now on their way back to the ship where we are, the USS John P. Murtha, just west of San Diego in the Pacific Ocean. Exciting to see our 4 crew members minutes away from landing on the flight deck here on the recovery ship. 550 people on this ship, excited, ready, anxious, looking forward to welcoming this crew aboard. Watching them now with our own eyes. Close to the ship here. Hearing them begin to hover on the flight deck, which is just across from us, here on the bow. The first helicopter coming in. And wheels down. Wheels down of the first helicopter carrying 2 of our Artemis II crew. Pilot Victor Glover and mission specialist Christina Cook. Kilo 1 on deck reported on the recovery loop. Again, the mission audio loops that the recovery team are using here to communicate with one another. And an announcement just made on the ship, integrity incoming. 2 more helicopters on their way to the flight deck, one carrying the crew, the other, one of our imagery helicopters. Again, kudos to our imagery and aerial teams for giving us these beautiful views of history in the making. Set amid a gorgeous, soon-to-be sunset here in the Pacific Ocean. Second helicopter making its approach of the flight deck. Plenty of people here on the bow with their cell phones out, filming this moment. Some impressive flying here by the Navy as we are seconds away from wheels down. And there you go. We now have all 4 Artemis II crew members on the USS John P. Murtha. I'm sure they're happy to be out of the water and on this recovery ship with, again, 550 people on board, ready to welcome them home. But first, as we've been saying throughout the broadcast, just making sure the crew feel good when those were initial quick. Their destination tonight, the medical bay here on the ship, right after we power down the helicopters here. The team on the flight deck working quickly but methodically. Waiting for just one more helicopter to touch down. Very limited personnel here on the flight deck
Maneuvering doctrine is in effect.
as that 3rd helicopter touches down.
The ship is at flight quarters. Stand clear of waiter decks, ACO frame 095, where no cover topside, thrown articles over the side, hold all trash and garbage on station. Flight quarters.
While just a few folks on the flight deck itself, there are plenty more on some upper decks. I see in some of our views a very packed crowd overhead. Announcements being made over the ship's loudspeaker system, reminding folks to stay clear of operational areas like the flight deck, so that teams can work quickly to get the crew off of the helicopters and into the medical bay. Splashdown today, 5:06 p.m. Pacific time. We are within 2 hours of that splashdown time, and already we have all 4 crew members on the flight deck of the USS John P. Murtha. Again, crew waiting before getting out for the helicopters to completely shut down. Safety, of course, very important to NASA and the U.S. military. So we'll wait just a couple of minutes here before we start seeing crew members walk off the helicopters one by one.
And with the helicopter blades slowing to a stop, we are, as we just heard, waiting for the emergence of the 4 Artemis II astronauts now. See NASA photographers getting in place, and one of the crew members on helicopter
All right,
44.
and now here we see pilot Victor Glover.
This is pilot Victor Glover.
And mission specialist Christina Cook, sitting on the edge of one of the helicopters, looking in great spirits. That familiar smile and laugh from Victor, I can see it from here. Christina, I'm sure, feeling the same way, just blocked a little bit by our camera here, but we'll see her here shortly. A photographer taking their pictures. Victor saluting folks on the flight deck. They look like they're in great spirits. Happy to be home, I'm sure. If you're sitting at home, I hope you too are wondering, what would you want to ask them if you got a chance to talk to them? Because that is what I'm thinking about. Getting the opportunity to talk to or ask questions of these 4 astronauts who just made history as the first crew to return to the moon since 1972. Oh, there we see Christina there, also smiling, finally peering out, waving at the cameras. Hello to you too, Christina, yes. Welcome back. Welcome home. Speaker announcement on the ship saying, welcome home, Teggy. Victor in great spirits. I can't see who he's talking to, but I kind of think that he might be talking to his other 2 crew members. Shouting from across the flight deck, congratulations to one another. And so now we see some Navy personnel walking up to the helicopter. This is again the first helicopter carrying pilot Victor Glover and mission specialist Christina Cook. Both have taken off their helmets now. Some pictures, video to catalog this historic moment. A beautiful sunset just behind them here in the Pacific Ocean. Golden hour. These pictures will be beautiful. Now we see NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. He is on the flight deck, as well as Flight Surgeon Rick Schuring walking over to Victor and Christina first. We saw the administrator walk over to the other helicopter, which is carrying Commander Reed Weissman and Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen. We heard from Rick earlier in the broadcast. Again, he said he's going to be out there on the flight deck to do another initial assessment of the crew, ask them how they're feeling, anything bothering them. But again, from what I'm seeing, they look like they're in great spirits and feeling pretty good for folks who just traveled 695,000 miles from Florida to the moon and now here to the Pacific Ocean. We're now seeing NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman walking across the flight deck. He had been talking to Reed and Jeremy, now approaching Victor and Christina. A hug from Victor, a hug from Christina. What a moment that we're getting to experience together. I'm sure kid in him right now, giddy, absolutely giddy at what we were able to accomplish today. Returning them home safely and in good spirits after a 10-day mission around the moon. And here we go. We're seeing Jeremy walking, waving across the flight deck, now on his way to the medical bay. It's a short walk, less than a minute. Again, that's why the recovery team decided to use helicopters to get them on the flight deck for that short walk to medical bay. And now on the flight deck, we see the chief of the astronaut office, Scott Tingle. Rick Schuring switching places. He's going over to the other helicopter. Big hugs from Victor, Christina to Scott. Again, a gorgeous sunset setting the stage for this recovery tonight. All right. And now here we are, Christina, making her way, looking thankful, grateful, happy to be home.
As we see astronaut Christina Cook walking to the med bay, flanked to her right by Chief of the Astronaut Office, Scott Tingle, now walking back out to the two remaining crew members. Let's see if he goes to, yeah, it looks like Victor's up next. He's in the helicopter on the right from this camera's vantage point, and Commander Reed Wiseman on the helicopter to the left, number 42. Hugs from the Chief of the Astronaut Office to Artemis II pilot Victor Glover. Lots of jubilation to be back on Earth. Victor now making his way over to the medical bay, like his two specialist crewmates before him. You can see Administrator Jared Isaacman just there beyond the helicopter blade by the look of it. And a crew member by with the wheelchair if needed, but so far all three have walked to the medical bay have done so under their own power, which is always good to see. Scott Tingle making his way to the final member of Artemis II, the commander, Reed Wiseman. This walk to the med bay for the commander coming 2 hours, 5 minutes, 18 seconds post splashdown. Is beginning to wrap things up for this historic day for the Artemis II mission, the conclusion of the first humans to travel to the lunar sphere of influence in more than 53.5 years or thereabouts. And crew on their way to the medical bay. Good to see them all back on Earth, and wonderful welcome home. We do have a post-splashdown news conference that is scheduled for about 9:30 p.m. Central Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 02:30 UTC. We will have that on our 24/7 live stream, Artemis Live. So be sure to tune in then to hear from NASA leadership about the journey, this final leg of the Artemis II mission, as the crew have been making their way back to planet Earth and successfully splashed down and now on the naval recovery ship.
Houston, the flight control team was just amazing. We were able to have great conversations and communications about everything. And I don't know what else to say. I'm just so excited. It's such a wonderful feeling to get to this point. Again, we still have to get the capsule, but this is huge for all of us in landing recovery. And I couldn't do this without my team, and of course the full support of the U.S. military. There's going to be lots of high fives when we get the capsule back in, and I'm so happy that the crew's doing well. Orion's doing well, and thank you for for everybody watching.
Yeah, yeah, it was great.
And you're looking now live back at a mostly empty white flight control room, the nerve center for the Artemis II mission since it has been in flight. And now that Orion is back on Earth, the crew safely in the med bay, getting their first medical checkups back here on planet Earth. The flight controllers team time in this room is done for now until preparations begin for Artemis III. And our time with you for now also coming to a close as we're wrapping up our dedicated coverage with commentary on the return of Artemis II. Of course, as we mentioned, there is a post-splashdown news conference coming up at 9:30 p.m. Central, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 02:30 UTC for those joining around the world. Also tonight, there is a Starlink launch out at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. So a couple of different ways that we'll bring you this live coverage. We'll have the news conference over on our 24/7 live stream, Artemis Live, and we will have the Starlink broadcast over on Launchpad Live. So whatever is your flavor of choice tonight, whether you want to see the Falcon 9 fly or you want to see the NASA leadership talk about how this mission played out and hear a little bit more about where things stand, we'll have both for you. So you can let this be a choose your own adventure tonight in which direction of space exploration you want to go. Want to give a big heartfelt thank you to our wonderful team behind the scenes, from our moderators on YouTube to all of you who have been watching the broadcast and been commenting, supporting our coverage from here in Houston throughout the course of this entire adventure. We're awaiting the crew to come back to Houston, and we'll have coverage of that tomorrow. But want to give a big thank you, of course, to our team here at Spaceflight Now, to John Pisani, to Adam Bernstein, Michael Kane, and our editor, Stephen Young. It's been one heck of a mission to cover here, the return of human space flight out to the moon for the first time in more than half a century. And it's been an honor to lead our coverage from here in Houston, Texas, right down the road from the Johnson Space Center. And I'll be heading over to the Johnson Space Center for that news briefing coming up here in about 10 minutes. Want to give a big final thank you to all of you who have been watching from home, whether you watch part of our coverage, all of our coverage, the videos we put on YouTube, and there's much more to come from our coverage of what is in between. Smith, as always, be good to yourselves, be good to others. Welcome home, Artemis II, and good night.